From its origins as a lush green planet, home to countless magical creatures, to its eventual fate as a barren wasteland where nothing could survive. The tale of Mandalore is tragic to say the least. And there's one question that a lot of fans have been asking. What exactly happened to Mandalore? It's hard to see how an incredible planet could end up like this. I mean, the surface of the planet is literally made of glass. So clearly something went very wrong at some point. And as it turns out, the evil Galactic Empire is to blame. You see, the Empire wanted absolute control of the entire galaxy. But that's kinda hard to do with a planet like Mandalore, because it happens to be the home of a very aggressive society of warriors, and they weren't gonna take the Empire's oppression lying down. Now, the Empire already had a lot of experience with hostile worlds, but in the case of Mandalore, things were quite different. The inhabitants knew how to use their home terrain to their advantage, and every attempt at an incursion by the Empire was rebuffed. There was only so much humiliation that the Empire could take. But the annihilation of Mandalore was the end result of a series of fateful events. And it all began right after Sheev Palpatine took over the galaxy when Darth Maul was ruling over Mandalore. Yup, you heard that right. The dual lightsaber-wielding Sith had used the chaos of the Clone Wars to his advantage. And to be fair, things weren't exactly stable on Mandalore either due to constant infighting. Bo-Katan led a group of orthodox Mandalorians who wanted to maintain their violent ways. But on the other end of the spectrum, some pacifists wanted a change. This gave Maul the chance to take over. Luckily, the Republic and its clone army stepped in to save the day. Along with the Jedi, of course. An invading force of clone troopers led by none other than Ahsoka Tano landed on the planet and ousted Maul. Anyone that's seen Star Wars Rebels would be pretty familiar with this story. Unfortunately, Sheev enacted a coup not long after, dubbing himself the Galactic Emperor. And when he set his sights on Mandalore, he decided to install a collaborator by the name of Gar Saxon as his puppet governor. The thing is, the Mandalorians weren't just gonna live under occupation without putting up a fight. The Emperor eventually decided that the planet was more trouble than it was worth. And so began the Great Purge of Mandalore. It began with TIE fighters descending to the Mandalorian surface. Palpatine wasn't messing around, and he ordered the TIE fighters to launch literal fusion bombs on Mandalorian cities. Mind you, these cities were already worse for wear after centuries of warfare, so the falling fusion bombs wiped them off the map. And they also melted the sands of the Mandalorian desert, turning the surface into glass. Mandalorian recruits tried to fight back valiantly, but they were mowed down by gunships. And Viper probe droids went through the rubble to eliminate anyone that had managed to survive. The event was immortalized and called the Night of 1,000 Tears. What's more, this whole invasion was led by a man we've all grown to hate. Moff Gideon was front and center, commanding the genocidal forces. And he finished things off by taking the Darksaber from Bo-Katan. That explains why she hates him so much. To make things even worse, the Empire turned one of the most valuable Mandalorian resources against them. And the Beskar that protected Mandalorians became their greatest weakness. The tragic thing is, they were betrayed by one of their own. You see, a Mandalorian by the name of Sabine Wren was behind all of this. She attended the Imperial Academy of Mandalore, which was basically just the Empire's attempt to brainwash inhabitants of the planet, making them more sympathetic to the Imperial cause in the process. Wren had a deep understanding of the inner workings of Beskar, and she developed a weapon that could target the metal. Basically, if you were wearing Beskar armor, you were toast. The weapon's rays would find you and vaporize you. The Beskar would be safe and sound, by the way, because the weapon only targeted organic matter encased in the metal. You see, the Empire wanted the Mandalorians gone, but they didn't want to lose out on any of the precious Beskar. After using the weapon to finish off the Mandalorian people, the Empire collected their spoils of war and left the planet behind. A desolate desert of glass was all that was left of the once proud Mandalore. But despite everything, a few survivors managed to get away. Now, Mandalorian fans already know about Bo-Katan's struggles to return to her homeworld. But how on earth did she manage to get out in the first place? The truth is, we just don't know. The only thing we're certain of is that she ended up on Trask at some point, which is where she met our hero Din Djarin in Season 2 of The Mandalorian. But that came much later. First, she had her revenge to plot. She knew that more survivors must have managed to get off Mandalore, so she got to work trying to round them up, figuring out a plan to retake Mandalore in the process. Eventually, she stumbled across our boy Mando, which was pretty lucky for her, cause Mando's the one that helped her get the Darksaber back. Or rather, he tried to help only to accidentally claim it for himself. But wait, Din Djarin himself is a Mandalorian. How's he still around after the Purge? Well, so you know that ultra-orthodox sect he's a part of called the Children of the Watch? Yeah, they kinda got lucky when the Purge started happening, cause they weren't even on the Mandalorian surface at the time. Instead, they were on the nearby Mandalorian moon called Concordia. They were hardliners, so they loved to be cloistered on a distant world so that they could meditate on the way. Although, they weren't exactly there by choice, cause the more moderate Mandalorians had exiled the conservative Children of the Watch to the moon. No one even knew they were alive. But to their surprise, they were, and they actually formed several clans during their exile. One such clan called itself the Tribe, and as it turns out, this is the clan that Din Djarin himself belonged to. I'm sure a lot of you remember that scene where Bo tells Din that he's a bit too uptight about his religion. That's a direct reference to him being a member of an ultra-orthodox group, whereas Bo is a follower of the modernized and vaguely secular form of the same religion, which is why she has no trouble taking off her helmet. Whereas Mando gets so guilty after doing it once that he's never able to forgive himself. Stuff like this was bound to give Din Djarin an identity crisis. And that's just what we see happening on the show. The whole saga of Mandalore, all the way up to the Purge and its aftermath, is setting up an explosive storyline for Din Djarin. Which brings me to this. Could Mando be the one to save his homeworld? Right now, all he cares about is gaining redemption for his grave sin of removing his helmet. I know what you're thinking, the guy seriously needs a reality check. But he's faithful to his religion and he wants to do right by it. In his defense, it's not like he has all that many supporters. Bo might be the only fellow Mandalorian that doesn't give him a hard time for taking his helmet off. But that might be the whole problem, cause Bo's a moderate, modern follower of the religion. And Mando? He's a fundamentalist through and through. Any comfort Bo could give him would turn to ash in his mouth. Regardless, Mando's the one with the Darksaber, and many are saying that this gives him a legitimate claim to the throne of Mandalore. The thing is, Din's own tribe considers the new Mandalorians to be the root cause of the Purge. They believe that Mandalore was cursed after the Purge, and they blame Bo-Katan's faction for all of it. So if Mando's gonna save his people, he'll need to contend with the competing desires of his own people, as well as the rest of the Mandalorian nation. There you have it. That's all you need to know about what happened to Mandalore.